Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, President Biden will give the final State of the Union address of his first term of his presidency.
In his remarks, the president is expected to, not surprisingly, address economic policies, the border bill Republicans rejected in the Senate, and the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas.
Alabama Republican Senator Katie Britt will deliver the Republican response, and that will happen right after Biden's remarks.
Let's bring in Scott McFarland and Ed O'Keefe. Scott McFarland is with us here on the balcony of the Cannon House office building. Ed O'Keefe, of course, on the north lawn of the White House. Scott, I want to talk to you about something that's happened today here on Capitol Hill that will be important as tonight's speech is digested in the digital space. If there are viral moments that come from this space, from whatever venue, the president or detractors on the floor of the House, they might show up first on TikTok. Today, something happened here regarding TikTok. What?
TikTok's in deep trouble after what happened here today. This is a day that began with a markup, a preparation of a bill that would require TikTok to separate itself from its Chinese-based owner or face a ban. That proposal was voted on in a matter of minutes, and it passed 50-0. An indication Congress has a momentum towards moving on TikTok, and they just happen to be doing it the day of the State of the Union. And I'll say this, there was this effort by TikTok to flood the phones of Congress by putting on their app a recommendation to put in your zip code, find your congressman or congresswoman, give him or her a call. Well, they called, and after all those calls, Congress voted 50-0 against TikTok.
Ed O'Keefe, to you at the White House. Lay out the White House orientation to this speech and some of the underlying goals for the president.
Three main themes in this speech tonight, we're told by White House aides, Major. Focus on restoring and protecting democratic norms, democratic institutions, what they're going to describe as liberties, but really what they're speaking to are rights like access to abortion services, women reproductive rights, voting rights, and similar issues like that. And then strengthening and improving one's opinion of the current state of the American economy. Expect that he'll go back a little bit and review what he's done, remind the audience a bit about what happened during the Trump presidency by perhaps not mentioning Donald Trump by name, and then cast ahead with a series of proposals we've already heard about today. This White House has been a little meatier than usual in giving some sense of what to expect tonight. Probably a signal they know they've got to put up some ideas that are poll tested and ultimately voter approved. Among other things, a plan to cap Americans' out-of-pocket prescription drug prices at $2,000 a year for those that have private insurance, expanding something that was done with the Inflation Reduction Act and extended to seniors on Medicare, seen as a way to cut costs. The focus on so-called junk fees or hidden fees that are either coming from your credit card company, the airlines, or other companies, will target that as well. And then in the foreign policy space, at a time when voters in at least 3 Democratic primaries have robbed the president of a handful of delegates now, he's going to announce plans for the U.S. military to build a temporary port on the coast of Gaza to ensure the delivery of humanitarian aid by sea into that territory, into that region. Again, a nod to those in his own party concerned about this and Americans more broadly about his oversight or execution or awareness of and involvement in the Middle East crisis. So that gives you a sampling of where this thing is headed. And of course, the big test I think many watching this will wonder is, can he get through a speech like this when he's known for his mumbles and stumbles?
Yeah, the kind of presentation of this speech might be paid more attention to than the actual policy announcements. But Scott, I'm interested to hear from you because we know how in this partisan environment, we see Democrats cheer for the president, Republicans boo him. But this is also, as we mentioned at the top, the last year of his term, if he's not reelected next year. Are Republicans in Congress kind of viewing this? Are there any kinds of areas where they could agree with him or move forward on policy? Or do they pretty much see him as a lame duck, just waiting for the next year?
There certainly could be areas they agree. I'm interested how that manifests itself in the room, how they would articulate any support for a president they're trying so very much to beat next year. I know both parties talked to their members in the past 24 hours about decorum and behavior in the room. Republicans have asked their rank and file to hold off and avoid any outbursts, any taunting, any jeering. I think there may be a practical concern there because President Biden was invigorated by that last year.
Draws energy from it.
He drew a pause, a rest, and energy from that. Exactly. Democrats, a few of them told me they're not going to try to shout down any Republican jeering because they expect the president will be energized by that. And why would you want to take away that logistical and leverage advantage for President Biden? That all being said, this has the feel of that 6-hour Super Bowl pregame show or the Oscars red carpet show. This has become a pregame dynamic in the State of the Union. Every member brings a hand-selected guest that will help them provide a message, a political message or a parochial message from back home. They're all making the rounds, all doing the interviews with their guest on their message of the day. So it's not just a messaging event at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. For those 535 people in the room, they've taken advantage of this long pregame show to make their arguments beforehand.
And Ed O'Keefe, back to you at the White House. I get a sense, listening to White House officials, that yes, tonight is an event, but they want to extend it if possible, not just through the remainder of this week, but possibly through the entire month of March.
Yeah, first of all, if this were a pregame show, there'd be a good concert right there behind you on the East Front, sponsored by Pepsi or something, Scott. So I don't know about this pregame dynamic you speak of. And the other thing is, in terms of bipartisan agreement, things they could work on, the TikTok bill is one of them. The National Security Council yesterday signaling that with a few tweaks, this is something the president could sign, even though his campaign now is using TikTok to get the word out. They are planning for an extensive travel schedule and campaign advertising schedule in the coming days, Major. You're right. The president headed tomorrow to the Philadelphia area, Saturday to Atlanta. We're expecting several more trips in the coming weeks. We were warned earlier today by a White House official here on the streaming network that the travel schedule is about to pick up pretty rigorously, both for the president and the vice president through the rest of the month, because not only is it about selling the State of the Union, more broadly now it's about selling him and his reelection, and it's something the campaign is going to help pay for. We know, for example, at the end of this month, he's got a huge fundraiser scheduled in New York City alongside Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, bringing the three Democratic presidents together for the first time to help raise a big chunk of money for a campaign that's pretty well funded. There will be other fundraisers and campaign events, New Hampshire on Monday among them. And so all of it now a signal that they're kicking into campaign mode. Frankly, they should be sending flowers and chocolates to Speaker Johnson for setting up the schedule this way, 2 days after Super Tuesday, now on the verge, essentially the beginning of the general election. Who couldn't ask for a better chance to capture America's attention tonight but the president, with the free advertising he'll get through the earned media and delivering his State of the Union address?
Well, and Republicans are hoping to present a counter to that with Katie Britt, Scott, who is going to be giving the Republican response here. She's seen as a rising star in the party, a young member of the Senate. I think she's only 42, which we all consider very young here. What should we expect from her?
Well, first-term member of the Senate. And when you have a former president running against a current president in an election, it's hard to make the change agent argument for either party. The Republicans put up a first-term new face, which helps them articulate a message of change, or we're going to change the dynamics of Washington. She offers that advantage. And demographically, what a contrast from the speaker before her. Young person, somebody from Alabama, a state that's critical in this moment in time because of the IVF court decision, which is a political bomb Republicans would like to defuse. Strategic decision that some Democrats have grumbled about, saying pretty smart strategic decision by Republicans.
Scott, also remind our audience of something that was put in place last night around the United States Capitol. We are in a security posture that is higher than normal.
A post-January 6 reality for the third State of the Union address in a row. There's a black iron fence, 7-8 feet tall, all around the Capitol campus. Perhaps it's just a message, a deterrent to any bad actors, but it really is a new dynamic we're getting a little too accustomed to. The People's House, open to everyone, surrounded by a fence because of what happened January 6th.
Ed O'Keefe, back to you at the White House. How much of either tonight or the next couple of weeks for the White House and the Biden re-election campaign will be about not just the vision or the agenda going forward, but a reminder of the American experience under President Trump?
Don't be surprised if you see a bit of it in the speech tonight, and don't be surprised if you see it constantly in the advertising that unfolds on the air, on your phone, in the digital space. I think there's a real push coming to not only reiterate the idea that what the current president is trying to do is a little more forward-looking, whereas what the former president's trying to do or would do would push the country back. One of the ways they're going to do that is when he talks about his age, you're going to hear him say, don't judge me by my age, but by the age of my ideas. I'm trying to push the country ahead. Trump and Republicans are trying to pull back progress by, among other things, going after IVF treatments and abortion services, making changes in voting rights and whatnot. It's a twist on an argument Bill Clinton, you'll remember, Major, made about Bob Dole back in 1996 when he said, I'm not concerned about Bob Dole's age, I'm concerned about the age of his ideas. Who has President Biden been spending a lot more time talking to in recent weeks? But Bill Clinton, who sees similar dynamics from 92 and 96 and what's about to unfold this year. It's an effective argument, they believe, and one the president's expected to employ.
All right, we will be staying tuned to all of it. Scott MacFarlane, thanks for being here with us outside on this beautiful day. And Ed O'Keefe, I know you're outside as well in the North Lawn, so enjoying this weather. Thanks for being here.